So yeah, what are you going to talk to us about today?
Well, I might as well just dive right into it. Thank you very much. I wouldn't say I'm known in the community because I think I'm pretty much unknown, which is awesome. I haven't been on the cover of magazines. I post a little bit on LinkedIn. Big deal. I'm going to be a real problem for you with the camera because I like to move around. I'm sorry. I'm like that. So in December last year when the call for papers for BSides came out, I thought, okay, what can I do that would deliver value? I appreciate every single one of you that's here. This is fantastic because I know there's a pretty high-profile conversation going on in the other theater. So I value each and every one of you. I'm going to say you're the audience with taste. So thank you very much. Where we're at is, I thought, okay, I've done some interesting things with my life, but am I really bit bashing anymore? No, not really. I mean, I can write some regex, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I can write any Perl. Does anybody write in Perl anymore? One writes in Perl? So I thought, okay, I want to try something a little different and talk about something a little more granular involved with incident response. So the air goes in and out, the blood goes round and around. I'll talk about that a little bit. What I want to talk specifically about is NIMS-ICS. So ICS, in this industry, we tend to think of ICS as industrial control systems. I'm talking about incident command systems. So I'm going to try and preface that everywhere I can. NIMS, National Incident Management System, Incident Command System. I'm going to talk a little bit about hobbies, and then I'm going to dive into the actual functions that I think are going to be beneficial. None of this is really in any way, shape, or form a set in stone, cut in granite kind of thing that you have to do. All this is a framework. I hope it's a tool for your toolkit that will maybe be beneficial, maybe it won't. The obligatory who am I slide, information security professional. So I've been doing IT-related stuff since the 1990s. For those of you that have CNE or had CNEs, I was one of you way back then. That's me jumping over a cubicle wall at Dave, and Khaled knew something was going to go down, so he was taking a selfie right at that point because Dave had clicked on the same phishing email 3 times in the same morning. Retired firefighter. When I did the RFP, the request for papers, I was still a firefighter actively in Beaumont, Alberta, which is south of Edmonton. It's a community of about 20,000 people, and it was a municipal firefighting organization. I'm not sure how many of you have any experience with what people in that kind of situation do, but you have your day job, and then this is something you do for fun. So we had a pile of wind and wildfires. I don't know if any of you had the Alberta Emergency Alert going on your phones on Wednesday night. Something really bad was going on. Siksika First Nation, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, they lost homes, they lost farms, and they activated all of these volunteers who are technically all paid on-call members for the most part now because that puts them under municipalities' insurance. But when you think about it from the perspective of it costs $1 million for a single firefighter position because that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, paying overtime, paying training, paying benefits, paying all these things. A single position costs $1 million. You need 4 positions to fill a truck, and you need 2 trucks to take care of a municipality or a county. $8 million is an awful big bill for a county, which is why this kind of thing is in firefighting and why we have why we have these people who do this sort of thing. James Hargraves. I don't know if any of you saw the news on that. Rural firefighter was driving a water tender on Wednesday night, and he lost his life when there was an incident with that water tender. Water tender is a great big water truck, dual axle. You need a class 3 or better license just to drive it. This was not an unskilled guy. It can be a dangerous occupation, but at the same time, we do it because, you know, I responded to an awful lot of carbon monoxide alarms at 2 o'clock in the morning. That was nothing more than a dead battery. But one of my neighbors was having a day that was bad enough that they wanted to call 911 to get that taken care of, that they were scared. And me and my department, we would go every time and we would say, we would rather show up for a dead battery every time than you not call us and something be wrong. And corporate shill. Who here doesn't like making money? Yeah. For almost 20 years, I worked as an independent contractor in the Edmonton area. When 2015 happened, there was a hole blown in the interest rates, the exchange rates, all those things. The economy took a dump. And you know, I thought, okay, this is a neat opportunity. I started going around to a bunch of different companies and talking to different companies about incident response in particular. Okay, I understand you don't have the money to be taking care of stuff right now. That's fine. Here's my card. Call me when the bad stuff happens. Oh, and by the way, look out for phishing and check your backups. And then I started getting all these phone calls eventually. Yeah, we got all this crypto locker and we got no backups. So can you save us, please? We just fired our IT guy, by the way. Yeah, because we got crypto lockered. Well, you getting crypto lockered and having no backups is maybe your IT guy's fault, maybe not. So, National Incident Management System, Incident Command System, designed originally during the 1950s for California wildfires. It was modified over decades to be an effective framework for incidents of any size and scope. Like I said, I'm just offering you another tool for your toolkit. I'm not doing anything technical here. Every single one of you is enough of an expert that you could implement these lessons into your plan anytime you want. And it's incredibly effective. So this is Gainford, Alberta in 2013, right shortly after Lac Mégantic in Quebec had a massive rail disaster. Gainford, Alberta had a massive rail disaster. Deputy Chief Sean McCary, who he created a YouTube video. It's brilliant. If you have the opportunity to watch it, I highly recommend it. And he's accessing an incredible amount of resources. So 4 fire departments, municipal government agencies, including a director of emergency management, finance, a county manager, rail agencies in Canadian National Railway, I believe, provincial agencies in sustainable resources development, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and they brought in a third party from the United States who did explosives because these rail cars were full of LPG. And they were on fire, so they wanted to do a controlled detonation instead of a uncontrolled detonation. So yeah, you're bringing people across the border with little to no notice that are carrying explosives. That's a heck of an organizational effort. And then we got this. Anybody recognize this? Shout it out if you recognize what this is. Thank you. Yes. Hurricane Katrina. This is the New Orleans Superdome. So this is widely regarded as a massive failure in communication in particular, as the local people are all saying to the citizens, go to the Superdome. You will be taken care of at the Superdome. So everybody went to the Superdome. That information was going down. No information was going back up when they were saying, so, got everybody at the Superdome. Should we, I don't know, send them some water? Some food, some diapers, any of these things. None of that information was getting back up to the boss of FEMA, who lost his job. FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Association in the United States. So I call this Glenn's gripe. My buddy Glenn is a paramedic with 23 years experience. He was on the front lines. He was with Tactical EMS in Edmonton. He's now doing a bunch of training for EMS. And when we were doing triage training, he said the first thing to break down in any emergency situation, doesn't matter what the agency, communication. Communication is your big deal. And the whole point of Incident Command System, safety of responders and others. Maybe we work with industrial control systems in the room, maybe we don't, so maybe safety isn't as big of a real deal. I don't know, maybe you're working on systems that include beam saws. That did work on a system in an incident response situation that involved a beam saw. Safety was a big deal because I like my fingers. Achievement of response objectives. Okay, we're going to do things. And efficient use of resources. What? We're not duplicating efforts? Yeah, that's it. That's really it. And where do we fit in? So everybody recognizes NIST? Great stuff. A lot of times when we have instant response conversations, we say, here we go. We're going to take care of all this stuff. Anybody who, I don't recognize anyone in the room from Shelley Giesbrecht's tabletops exercise on Wednesday. Yes! It was brilliant, and it was a lot of fun. It was fantastic. We covered a full end-to-end scenario of a big unpleasant incident. But where do I want to fit in? Right there at that red arrow. Bang! Detection and analysis. The poo has hit the fan. What the heck are we going to do about it now? A little bit of a sideline. Jack Daniels talked about this last year in his keynote speech, which was phenomenal when he opened up BSides. He opened up, Jack Daniels, the bearded man with the top hat himself, opened up BSides last year, and his talk was phenomenal. And he talked about the importance of having hobbies. I did music for a number of years when I was a kid. The biggest lesson I learned off that coincides with information security is a lot of times people don't actually care about my own original work. They just want to hear regurgitated Skinnerd covers, right? If I hear one more time, play Sweet Home Alabama, I'm going to lose my frickin' mind. Backcountry exploration. If you screw up, you got no cell phone coverage, you might die. A buddy of mine was into scuba diving, and he did this philosophy called DIR, doing it right. You know, you have your third for your air. You have a third for you, a third to get back, and a third in case something really bad happens. That's kind of what I took away from it. Again, if you screw up, you die. Boating, there's always some drunk jackass on the water trying to ruin your day. World traveling, I got 3 kids and lots of fun with my 3 kids. We don't tend to do a whole lot of traveling, but I know people who do, and they come back so enriched from their world traveling because they've discovered that there are other ways to do things in this world. Emergency response. So I've always had a fairly intense hobby in one way, shape, or form. Now that I've moved to Calgary, I need to find a new crazy hobby. I was thinking about hang gliding, but apparently that died in the 70s. But the parallels between what we do in emergency response and what we do in IT and information security are really, really close. Any other really cool hobbies that people have? Shout them out. Sorry? Yes, MMA. Fantastic. Lots of cool parallels in that because you're always having to think one step ahead, right? Team sports. I got my first real job in 20 years, and I'm working on a team of incredibly talented people who blow my mind every day. It's fantastic. So right here, I'm going to go back to this slide for a second. Bang. This is bang. Everything in the preparation sense is left of bang, and that's actually a really good book. I'm trying to remember the name of the author, but it was a really cool book about preparing for incidents. Everything to the right is we're now doing stuff, but something bad has just happened in your environment right here, and you need some resources and you need some objectives. So I want to lead into a thought exercise about bang. You ever called 911? Needed a police officer, an ambulance, maybe witnessed a car crash? Right? I watch fail army videos with my kids all the time because, it's interesting watching people fail at things. It's a hoot. And you hear that in the background of the person with the phone all the time. Dude, this guy has just eaten dirt. He's in full-on fencer position and he's unconscious, which indicates that he's got a massive brain injury. Dude, you okay? Dude. So it comes into that whole concept of, we often talk about fight or flight, but what happens more often than not is freeze. You see that in a car crash. Oh crap, did I just see that happen? I don't know what to do. Time changes. A minute feels like an hour. Our goal with municipal fire response was 7 minutes, and we were beating that most of the time. And people every time came back and said, what the hell took you guys so long? So with, on-call firefighting, it means that I got the call on my radio, I beetled to the hall, and we got to the scene in 7 minutes. That is pretty solid. Any municipality is going to be striving for the same sort of thing. but a minute feels like an hour. If you've ever witnessed a car crash and called 911 just to get a police officer there because something was a little fishy, it feels like forever. And it feels like that too when something really bad happens. Our brain speeds up. Everything changes. We shift from our frontal lobe to our hippocampus. Our lizard brain takes over. And, oh geez, we got a data breach. What are we going to do? How are we going to handle that? Again, more parallels. Anybody who's done their Red Cross stuff, check, call, care, right? That's the first thing you do. Check for safety, call for help, begin patient care. Airway, breathing, circulation, right? Your ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. Same thing in our environment. Do we have safety? Yeah, okay. Where's the revenue? So, bang. Movie trivia. This is a Unix system. I know this. Anybody know the movie? Jurassic Park. Yeah, absolutely. As technical people, and I've fallen into this trap myself so many times, I know this. I know what this is. I know how to take care of this. That's why I put the airplane on there. Is because if I'm responsible for this incident, if the boss has said to me, Adam, I don't care what this takes, fix this, then I can't be looking at that technical level. I have to sit at 30,000 feet and start taking care of the incident from a high level. I put in here in my slide notes, I got 99 problems, but a breach ain't one. Thank you, Tom Petty. Rest in peace. Here's where we start. We have problems. Do a time check. Oh, we're good. We have problems. You take your problems and you set priorities. You turn those into objectives, and you delegate strategies and tasks and tactics in that order. Sorry, I want to give you a chance to write that down. It's all good. I'll make the slides available too. So I thought, let's go through that thought exercise. We got problems. We have SMB v1 on our network for some strange reason, and we have self-replicating ransomware. What are our problems? Our data availability has decreased, right? Because it's getting locked up. The number of affected computers is growing. So we don't know really what's going on yet. We just know that it's getting worse. Our help desk has been DDoSed by staff panic. Everybody and their dog is calling the help desk to say, yeah, so I got this weird pop-up and now I can't get into my HR files and I think I might have clicked something, but I don't know. And our sales desk is unable to take orders. I throw that one in there because, like I was saying before, what's our bleed? Revenue. Right? They always taught us that in IT-related things, is don't mess with the revenue. Don't screw with the revenue. Don't take the revenue away. Make sure that whatever changes you're doing, don't mess with the revenue. Change windows, all that stuff. Sales desk is unable to take orders. And I thought I'd throw in a little bit of insanity wolf as well and say, quarterly financial meeting with shareholders is in 2 hours. Yeehaw! Roar! So this is all hypothetical scenario land, right? So let's talk about our priorities. And this is where I went. Maybe you do something different and it'd still be right. Because this happens fast. And like I said, we start having that issue where our frontal lobe, where all of our good thinking happens, doesn't seem to work as well anymore because we've got a constant set of inputs of people screaming at us saying, fix this problem. Okay, the only wrong call is not making a call. Is that freeze scenario where and I've seen this in cybersecurity all the time, and I use the word cyber because it's something that resonates with normal human beings as compared to infosec. When people say, what do you do for a living? I say infosec. They go, what kind of sex? Or I say information security, and they go, all right. I say, yeah, I do cybersecurity. And they go, oh, cool. Did you see the front cover of Bloomberg? Yes, I didn't. Don't care. And your situation is going to be different, or your understanding of your own environment, so your priorities can change too. These are just the priorities that I threw down. Gather data on the infection, prepare information for quarterly shareholder meeting, plus figure out resources they're going to require. Isolate the affected computers. Broadcast a message to the staff and arm your help desk with a script so they can say, yeah, we know there's a problem, it's being worked on, good night. And begin restoring systems to service, starting with sales. High level, right? At no point did I ever start talking about a technology. At no point in any of this did I say, yeah, we need our Nessus guy in here. Right? High level, went high. This is the org chart that typically accompanies NIMS-ICS. I don't know if you can read that very well. It doesn't matter because a lot of it is garbage for what we want to do in cybersecurity. Because this right here says Air Ops Branch. Wouldn't that be frickin' cool if we got issued Apache strike helicopters? Come on! Yeah, it's not going to happen. But this is kind of the way it starts off. You have an incident commander. Bang! Somebody takes responsibility. You get a, the public information officer, safety officer, liaison officer, they'll come later. Chances are you don't have those right off the beginning. What you have is an operations section. And I like this where it says operations section, because how many of us have operations departments? Probably all of us. There's an IT operations, maybe you've got an information security operations. You can't confuse the two, because I don't care about the department, I need resources. Operations section, which gets split up into branches, a planning section, a logistics section, finance admin section. So let's clean this up a little bit. Oh geez, Seth Jaff. Did you guys attend Seth Jaff yesterday with the NASA instant response system and all of the inputs they were taking? My God, that was so cool. The concept that he brought up that I really took away from that and I wrote down in Google Keep was this concept of I talk about incident command, he talks about flight. Flight is the badass in the room. Flight is the guy who controls everything and has the authority to kick anybody out of that room, including the president, which would be kind of funny. But incident command, this is your ultimate authority. And right off the bat, in our scenario land here, I want an operations section and I want a communications section. That shareholder meeting in 2 hours threw a really interesting wrinkle into my world. So we've got to write some objectives. What are we going to do? How are we going to get people to do what we need them to do? How are we going to communicate? Remember, the first thing to fall apart in any emergency situation is communication. So great little framework. Everyone's heard SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That's great. I like the way that NIMS simplifies this a little bit more into ABCD. Audience, behavior, condition, degree. So Debbie, hi Debbie. Thanks for being here. How many people do you have with you to help respond to my scenario? 21. So I now have an operations department of 21 people. How sick is that? What do I want 21 people to do? The operations section, that's our audience, will gather data on the ransomware infection type payload spread and inventory infected machines, behavior, using existing investigative tools and techniques, condition, degree, and report status to IC, Instant Command, by 3:45 p.m. Was there any ambiguity to that? Do you know exactly what you need to do? Excellent. Dawn, hey Dawn, thanks for being here. You have nobody with you. Yeah, I love you, man. I hope you're cool with it, but you're my communications section now. You. So Dawn will prepare an information release for the quarterly shareholder meeting, proofread by corporate communications and legal counsel by 4:30 p.m. So at 5 o'clock, that's when our shareholders meeting is. Is there any ambiguity into what I've asked you to take care of? Audience, behavior, condition, degree. And like I was saying in the problems and priorities, I have at no point said, I need my Nessus guy. I'd love to have a Nessus guy, don't get me wrong, but I don't need that. Debbie will figure that out. I only picked 2 objectives just because you typically have an objective for each priority, right? So if you've identified your priorities, and your priorities can change. None of this is marble. None of this is set in stone, right? We want to make sure that as information comes in, we are flexible enough to make changes that will affect the outcomes in a positive manner. Oh yeah, and each one of these requires action, right? So our org chart got bigger. And Debbie has decided that in her operations section, she's going to split things out into investigations and isolation remediation. That's cool. Don has gotten a couple people. He's accessed some resources, some legal counsel, etc. He's phoned in all his favors. He's got now internal communications and shareholder communications, so we can split those up. Maybe you're using a whiteboard for this. Again, from Shelley's tabletop exercise on Wednesday morning, take notes. There will be after-action reports. If you are a publicly traded company or a government organization, someone is going to put a flippin' microscope on you, and you're going to have to justify every action you made. I use the application Xmind for this sort of thing because you can kind of blast everything out in different ways, and you can hit the little plus, and it'll expand. You can contract as you need it. Whiteboards are great as well because you can take pictures of them. It's fantastic stuff. Strategies and tasks. Did I tell Debbie how to do her job? I don't need to. Debbie's brilliant. Debbie is a leader. Debbie will tell her people how to get their stuff done. This is something that is another big fall down for a lot of people, especially males with egos who have white hair. I'm profiling, I'm sorry. But they feel like they need to control everything, right? Even as someone developing strategies, sometimes you feel like you need to control everything. But quite frankly, in our industry, we all got brilliant people working with us. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to say, hey, Chris, I need you to get that done. And he can just go and do it. It's fantastic. Take notes, lots of notes. Span of control. I know there's lots of people who have 40 direct reports. Or in Debbie's case, she just brought me 27 people. In an emergency situation, whether it's EMS or whether it's cybersecurity and you've got something really bad happening, you cannot control as a normal human being. Maybe if you're a NASA flight controller, you can do this, but you can't control more than 7 inputs. So here's a great way to split your stuff up. Span of control, 3 to 7 resources, ideally 5. 5 is a great number. As the incident commander, you offload your objectives, A, B, C, D, onto your supervisors and let them develop strategies. Strategies are going to be, yeah, I have access to these tools. We can use these tools. And delegate the use of those tools. Physically located, your incident commander, your person in charge of your incident, everybody should know where that person is all the time. That isn't somebody who can just be walking around with a cell phone. You should have a command post. If something bad happens, you need to have a level of communication. So our org chart expands again as the incident progresses. Did we meet our span of control on this one? Seeing a couple of shaking heads, because you're absolutely right. Let's look at a couple things here. First, before I dive into our problem, Don has just had somebody come to him and say, hey, Grant showed up. And he said, yeah, I got me and 2 people. So here's Grant, and here's the 2 people that came with Grant that he pulled out of bed and says, hey, Don, I got me and 2 people. How many resources has Grant just brought Don? He's brought 1. Aha! The trick question. Because he has 1 person reporting to communications. Grant talks to Don, and these 2 people talk to Grant. Not to say that, especially in a safety situation, that these people can't talk to Don. But that is the line of communication we can follow up and down to make sure that timely information gets delivered in a way that doesn't overload our inputs. At the same time, too, Debbie's got 3 people in particular, and she says, okay, Chris, you've got 2 people. You and those 2 people go and do this strategy. Perform these tasks and this strategy. That is one resource that Debbie needs to take care of and monitor. So yeah, we got a problem here though. We got network engineer, server boss, Windows Server tech, Windows Server guru, desk side support, storage group. And maybe that has turned into 27 people. So we can fix that. We can reorganize that a little bit. Boom. Under isolation remediation, now we've got a network group with 2 engineers. We've got a server group with a Windows and a Linux guy. And we got a desk side support guy, and we got a storage group guy. Have we met our span of control? Absolutely. Because storage group, desk group, server group, network group. Those 4 leaders will now talk to isolation remediation lead. Lines of sight are so important. And again, nothing's concrete, especially where information about safety is concerned, or if you have a message that simply needs to get to the top immediately, get it there. So our incident's now been going on. We've done our shareholder meeting, stuff like that. Our incident's been going on now for 6 hours. We're going to need some more stuff, aren't we? We haven't solved our problems. We haven't sorted out our objectives yet. We haven't delivered a real good answer on anything yet. So we're going to need maybe a liaison with law enforcement, third-party assistance, corporate partners. That's what this framework is designed to do. Expand in such a way that you can bring in more resources as you need them. Maybe you need a scene safety officer. Maybe you need a chief pizza officer because your people have been there for 6 hours. I bet they're hungry. The million-dollar question, where do you want to stick your executives? So we've got at the top, we've got South America. My thought is somewhere right in the middle. The reason I say that is because I hear that all the time. You get somebody who says, I am the big cheese, I am in command, I don't know anything about cybersecurity. Solve your problems and let me know how it goes. But, you know, or especially in a scenario where, hey, everything seems to be going good. Look what I did. Right? As the executive steps in and takes command of your situation when things are going good. Or, wow, this is a dog's breakfast. Not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Ideally, you can assuage egos by not necessarily having a safety situation, but you stick your executives in a position of a second set of eyes. I don't know the corporation as well as you do. I don't have access to the boss at legal or at risk and claims or in finance. You do. I need you to be that communication person and get me the resources I need. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. You're going to need executives to approve finances, anything with money. You're going to need executives for that. And who is the person that should be talking to the media? Maybe this is an event that is media related. The incident commander? Heck no. President of the company. Whatever. Chief information officer. Somebody like that can do their nicely scripted things because chances are they've been around longer than me and they know the things to say that won't get us in trouble with the shareholders. Or maybe it will. So the end of my example on this one, we have our incident command. I've kind of expanded it again so we can see everything because I kind of zoomed in before. We've got an operations section, we've got a communication section, liaison officer, we've got planning, say we've got resources coming in, mobilization, demobilization, resource allocation, documentation. Remember that thing about taking notes? The more notes you can take, the better, especially in an environment where you're going to have a microscope on you. Grant MacEwan Community College, God rest their soul. How much of a microscope is going to be on them from Alberta Education now, from various shareholders? They've got real interesting situation on their hands now, and I hope they kept good notes when they were doing their investigation and remediation. This is cool. I'm going to let you guys out early too, because I actually need to be in Edmonton for 5 o'clock. I'm not quite sure I'm going to make it. So just some resources available to you. Nothing I've said here has been in any way, shape, or form my stuff. This is Skinnerd, right? There are 5 certifications now out of NIMS-ICS, 100, 200, 300, 400, 402. I got up to 300 before, I still haven't done 400 or 402. 400 is multiple agency investigations and incidents. 402 is same sort of thing, but designed for executives, not for emergency responders. 402 sounds like something that would be really cool. Alberta Emergency Management Agency, aema.alberta.ca, they put on these courses. That's a big part of what they do. ICS 100 you can do on the internet for free, right on the site aema.alberta.ca. And it's a basic introduction to that thing that is so wonderful that ISC Squared has given us too, the common definitions, the common language that we can use to communicate. ICS Canada as well is another nonprofit agency that handles a lot of this stuff, icscanada.ca. I talked about PPost. Problems, we got problems. You set priorities, you develop objectives, and you delegate strategies and tasks and tactics. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. All of us have been drilled with that for years and years. The ABCD, though, is the one that helps you create those sentences that will get you action and deliver results. Audience, behavior, condition, degree. And the whole point of all this is to organize, execute objectives using chain of command, and communication is key to your success. I'm leaving that as end of file, and I'd like to invite any questions if anybody has any. Questions is always the death period too, because somebody always asks something obscure and it's really hard and I have to make some crap up. No, I'm kidding.
I'll go easy on you. So obviously there is great merit in having simulations and fire drills, and in the context of information security or a breach, sometimes it's really hard to do that. And then the flip side of that is, without having those simulations or fire drills, you don't really know how intact your process is when something actually happens. So what are your recommendations in and around that, and building a culture of acceptance around the need for those simulations?
You are the bomb, because I was going to talk about this and I totally forgot about it. Seth Jaff's presentation yesterday was brilliant for that, in that every single thing that they do has scripts in it. Something else that was brilliant from that presentation was, doesn't matter what your problem is, the rocket is still burning and the rocket is still on its way up. So you have to deal with this stuff. But in that environment, everything is scripted. So there's a really cool book that I read years ago that I've gone back to a few times called The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande. I don't know if any of you have read it. I recommend putting it on your required reading list. It's phenomenal. And just to summarize, at the end of the book, what he says is, you develop these checklists that are not prescriptive. If I see another frickin' procedure that is 50 pages of screenshots, I'm going to vomit. Is that useful to anybody? No. We're all intelligent people. We have intelligent people working with us. So what you do is you create tabletop scenarios or playbooks that say, here are the things, here's the formula that you can use to achieve success, and use your brilliance to figure it out. Setting objectives. That's what NIST did for us in that little 4-slide framework, or the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain. Cyber kill chain! I like saying that with the side lisp. But they've developed those objectives for us that we can use to move forward with our own intelligence and our own processes and knowledge of our own system. Does that kind of answer what you're looking for? You're also asking about gaining acceptance? Tabletops. Absolutely. And realistic tabletops that are non-punitive. Something that happens in emergency services a lot is they use punitive measures. They say, okay, you are incident command, you are our operations section, you are our communications section, go. And then someone plays Dungeon Master and throws all sorts of horrible crap at you designed to make you fail. Build yourself some tabletops designed to make everybody succeed. At the end of the day, we don't necessarily need to be perfect, but we want to. I'm going to invoke the spirit of Michael Santarcangelo, Security Catalyst. If anybody's looked at his stuff, I highly recommend it. He's brilliant, and his capacity for communication is above anybody else I've ever seen in this industry. What's the problem we're trying to solve? And then we go to solve it. We don't necessarily need to be looking at the perfect scenario, but what steps can we take to move towards a better tomorrow, right? Did I take today and my tabletop exercises and make tomorrow look a little bit better? Yeah, let's celebrate the heck out of that. You know, the other thing that I'll bring up in that scenario too is those lessons learned meetings that we all have afterwards. We have an after incident action analysis, and we talk about, oh, well, we could have communicated better and all these things. And it's the same after action analysis on everything we did. It's another thing I pulled out of Seth Jaff yesterday was he was saying they did a massive investigation after Challenger to say, why did this shuttle explode and kill a bunch of astronauts? And then they did it after Columbia, and they basically took the Challenger one, dumped it on the photocopier, and hit go. So that's what I got on that. Any other thoughts, questions, queries, comments?
Yeah, so it's critical to be able to articulate the potential impact, whether it's evident or not. And going back to like one of your first pictures, you've got a burning train wreckage sitting there. And then what did the guy say? He said, whatever it takes. You know, bring these people with explosives across the border on short notice, you know, like, you know, pull all the stops. So sometimes it's really difficult without being able to articulate the potential impact to get those resources allocated.
And that's the first two P's in the P post, right? We got problems, let's set some priorities. And that's also where executives come into play too, is that I might say that the communication with the shareholders is the most important thing, and the executive might come in who's giving that delivery and says, you know what, I can postpone it. Don't worry about that today, right? So getting buy-in from the people who control the money, people who control the revenue. That executive might say, you know what, I need my sales force working. I'm losing 100 grand an hour. I need my sales force to be able to write orders. So having those communications up and down the chain, and that left of bang stuff too, setting that up and saying, do we want to be Grant McEwen? No. Then what do we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Going back to the chain of command, or the command post that you talked about, sometimes you do need to escalate or get approval from an executive. So how does one make sure that there are executives in that command post, whatever that looks like, but you know, like that they are available to make that decision?
That's going to be different in every environment, right? In some organizations that I've been in where it's been smaller, they've created that conference bridge, the dreaded conference bridge. And I love the concept of having multiple conference bridges as well. You have your incident commander with a couple few spider phones in front of him, and he's got the executives on one, he's got the technical people on the other, and he's got the communications people on another. But yeah, having those lines of communication in and out can be challenging, and that's all related to where you are in your organization. Maybe you got it, maybe you don't. Maybe you need to do some pre-incident planning left of bang and try to get them on board and understanding their risks. Sorry? Jason A. Riley, left of bang. Thank you, Debbie. It's awesome. Great book.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
With regards to tools, are tools useful? And if so, which ones are the most valuable in these situations?
When you're talking about tools, you're talking about technical side things, like the Nessuses
like
and the Rapid
tools,
7s.
Chat tools, IM tools.
So when
fix
creating objectives, now, okay, as a communication tool, maybe Slack is what you use. Maybe Microsoft Outlook is what you use. Maybe you got public folders, maybe you got SharePoint. Right? Your tool is going to be related to whatever you have, right? If you've got nothing, then anything's an improvement. If you've got something, then use it, right? But your objectives should be independent of those tools. Does that kind of make sense? Does that answer what you're looking for? I think that's it. Oh, one more.
Yay.
Oh, by the way, you can dox me. I'm usually more active on LinkedIn than anywhere else. By all means, feel free to reach out to me if you'd like information on any of this stuff.
So given the economic crunch and lots of companies are, outsourcing to India and whatever, what are some incident response, recommendations you have for companies that are doing that?
Having this conversation over lunch about an outsourced sock that sucks. Constant communication. If you cannot communicate with your third party, then you're in trouble, right? You should be communicating with your third party before there's problems, so that when there is a problem, you know what those lines of communication are going to be. If you've got, doing what I was doing prior to my job that I have now, man, that sucked for the companies when they would call me up and they would say, yeah, remember that time you told us that we should be worried about phishing and that our backup sucked? Well, okay, the worst case scenarios happened. Can you fix it? Hope you got Bitcoin. Sometimes we could, sometimes we couldn't. But it's all going to be communication in and out. And if your third-party provider isn't giving you what you need from that communication level, change your partner, right?
All right, we're going to wrap
You guys
this
are
up.
beautiful. Thank you so much for giving me the
you.
opportunity to
That was
hang out with you this
awesome.
afternoon.
Appreciate it. So we're down to the last.